This week, everyone watching to see what's going to happen with your internet search history. Will, William Barr and others just be able to warrantlessly collect that, potentially use that information? Well, there was an attempt via amendment to block that, and that has failed. The Senate on Thursday took up a key bill to reauthorize domestic surveillance programs while making changes to the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, with several substantial amendments on the line. One of them, the one we're talking about here, introduced by Democratic Senator Ron Wyden and Republican Senator Steve Daines, would have required authorities to obtain a warrant to access internet users' search histories and browsing information. That fell short by a single vote after 4 senators who presumably would have voted yes failed to show up to the session, including Bernie Sanders, by the way, which we mentioned here. We'll have more on that. 9 Democratic senators also voted no, so against protecting people from that sort of warrantless seizure of your internet activity, causing the amendment to fall short of the 60-vote threshold it needed to pass. I'm assuming implicitly there that it's just that standing implicit filibuster for everything. So, yeah. But anyway, we're going to have more on this. We've got some names that we would like to name. But I don't believe that we had talked about this beforehand. What were your expectations going into that vote?
Well, I didn't think they were going to get enough. And I think that, truthfully, I think that most of the senators, or many of the senators, were sort of caught unaware by this and don't know enough about it, which is why I think that you had a lot of people sitting out, that it's kind of it's the legacy of Richard Nixon in the modern day, right? I mean, okay, you're not pushing play record on a tape deck. You're actually going in and looking at the internet history, and you're allowing the head of the Justice Department, the Attorney General, to do that. Someone who would have political motivation right from the outset. I think that there were a lot of senators who just weren't prepared for that to be on the table and had to look into it further, which is what senators sometimes do when you see that they didn't vote. Sometimes they're logistics, sometimes they're lazy. But sometimes it's because they don't know enough, and there's enough of them to say, hey, we're going to sit this out. It's going to be tabled until we can get on it. Yeah.
Well, we're going to turn to the people who didn't vote in a sec. Let's go to the people who voted against it. These are Democrats voting against it. We've got Carper, Casey, Feinstein, Hassan, Jones, Kaine, Tim Kaine, VP nominee, Tim Kaine, Manchin, not really surprising, Shaheen, Warner, and Whitehouse. Yeah, if I was going to just try to come up with some names, I would have gotten at least 30% of that, probably, maybe 40 or 50.
I don't think I would have. I would not have gotten. I wouldn't have gotten a lot of them. I wouldn't have gotten Shaheen and Hassan and Whitehouse for sure. I would not have thought that that's where they would be. And I don't know that they know that that's where they are right now. I mean, I really think that there's going to be a lot of airing this out before it just happens.
Yeah. Well, let me give you the brief response of one of the two who sponsored the amendment, Ron Wyden, who said, 59 members of the Senate just voted in favor of my amendment to block warrantless government surveillance of Americans' browser history. It failed by just one vote. McConnell is that much closer to giving Bill Barr the green light to spy on Americans' private information. And I could put together a list of the people that I might trust with that power. His name would not be near it. He goes on to say,
anybody with that power, like I wouldn't trust anyone with that. But I don't think that power should be entrusted.
Like Tom Hanks.
Not that I would. Well, Tom Hanks. Yeah. All right. So aside from Tom Hanks, no. Honestly, like I don't think. Not that I wouldn't trust anybody with it. I don't think anybody should be entrusted with it. Okay. It's just that's the difference.
Fair enough. And he goes on to say, the typical American may think to themselves, I've got nothing to worry about. I've done nothing wrong. The government has no reason to suspect me of anything. Why should I worry? Unfortunately, the question is not whether you did anything wrong. The question is whether a government agent believes they have the right to look at your web searches. And so I want to mention the thing about the 4 who didn't vote and the Bernie Sanders, because I saw some of what I would consider justifiable criticism of that, and the some that goes way too far. And the thing is, it is one thing to say it failed by one vote. And so because of that, any one vote could have changed it. That seems like a thing we can say, but it requires a belief that the way that voting works is something is put forward, all of the senators go into a room and they think about it, and then they don't talk to each other, and they don't receive any sort of orders from above, and then they go in and they vote, which is not how it works. So that's 59. But if Bernie Sanders was going to vote, if the other 4 were going to vote, it wouldn't have been 59. Mitch McConnell wouldn't have freed up more Republicans to vote against it so that they can pretend that they have an actual problem with it. They knew the likelihood that it was to pass, and that influences the votes going into it. So, look, perhaps if those others had showed up, it could have passed. but I don't think that it's by any means a guarantee, even if on paper it looks like that's the case.
Yeah, that's clear and well put. And, I don't think, I don't know that these 4 senators, though, would have changed a ton of minds. It wasn't debated long enough. It wasn't talked about long enough. But I think Ron Wyden and certainly Steve Daines were persuasive enough on this. And I think that a lot of senators are going to look at this as a bad vote, and so when it comes back up again, I think it's going to be seen. I think that Wyden will prevail.
Okay, I certainly hope so. And in the meantime, if you want to criticize those who didn't vote, and certainly those who voted against it, feel free to do that. But just think a little bit about what it actually represents. That's all I'm saying. And hopefully we'll return to it. Also, by the way, how long was it debated for? Was there any public, like I follow a lot of internet news sites, so I was aware of it, but something as big as that, it seems like, shouldn't that be like a thing that the country is thinking about and talking about for a week before? Like, but no,
that's what I just said, John.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I'm saying. So it deserves more, and it will get more now.
I certainly hope so.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.